Hello! I have been meaning to shoot this video for a while, but honestly, I have been a little hesitant because it is a huge topic, and I also think that often people take it the wrong way, and it ends up really exacerbating their stress and anxiety around their healing process, and I really never want to contribute to people's anxiety around their health or healing, and so I've been thinking about how I want to frame this video, but I still think it's a really important topic because I do see people get tripped up by this issue, and that is the issue of living a low toxin lifestyle or engaging in non-toxic practices in terms of your product use and daily habits and things like that. So this is a huge topic, obviously, because we live in an industrialized society. We are, almost 200 years post the Industrial Revolution. We are now, getting 80 years post World War II, and those are two of the biggest periods in history where we saw a huge rise in the amounts of just overall toxicity in our environment. And so we're a little ways into this, and so it has become an extremely pervasive issue, and it is a huge rabbit hole that you can get sucked down because you can really start to see things like every single thing you interact with every day. You can start to look through the lens of toxicity. And it can take you to some dark places, honestly. This is something that I've really had to modulate for myself and really set boundaries around in terms of, how much I, I worry about and shift my behavior around these issues. And I see a lot of my clients really panicking about these issues as well. And there are good reasons to talk about these issues. I mean, I really do believe, and I have some other videos where I talk about, toxicity being the root of chronic illness ultimately, right? And I do believe that. I do believe that you cannot separate the changes that have happened through the Industrial Revolution and post, the World Wars, from the massive rise in disease and illness that has occurred. I think the two absolutely go hand in hand, and I think you can trace most people's health issues down to a root of toxicity or a body not managing toxicity well. So, I mean, it is absolutely a valid conversation to have, and it is a really important thing for people to be mindful about. But at the same time, I think that we can get into a loop of feeling really despairing and hopeless once we start really delving into this topic because, again, this is a pervasive issue. Like, anything you look at, like I could look around this room I'm in right now and I could start to name off all the sources of toxicity just in this room I'm sitting in right now, right? So that is not a good space to be in when you're trying to heal. When you are sitting around looking for all the potential threats in your environment, it is going to put a major obstacle to your healing process because what we also know is that stress and chronic fear and not feeling safe, these are also major root causes of chronic illnesses, and especially chronic illnesses that tend to be kind of treatment resistant or tend to be stubborn in terms of their healing progress. So we don't want to dedicate ourselves to living a non-toxic lifestyle and then be completely keyed up and terrified about everything we're exposed to every day. That's not going to help us heal either. So there has to be some kind of happy middle ground that we find, and that's something that I've really worked on doing. And basically, you just have to set really clear boundaries with yourself in terms of okay, here's all the potential avenues of toxic exposure. Some of this I'm not going to worry about, right? Some of this I am just going to kind of shelf, and trust my body that it'll deal with. But, these things I feel more confident and more capable about, trying to mitigate as much as I can in my life. And this isn't an all or nothing conversation because we have built-in detox organs, right, that are working full time, right? We have our liver and our kidneys and our lungs and our skin and our lymphatic system. I mean, these organs all serve the purpose of detoxifying us, and they're doing that every day. And so there is an amount of toxicity that it is absolutely fine for us to be encountering, our bodies can handle a lot. They're very, very resilient. And so it's just a matter of figuring out where that line is for us. Like, where do we kind of get to that line where we're in kind of toxic overload status, right? And our bodies aren't able to manage it as well, because that's all it is. It's not saying I can never expose myself to a toxin ever, because that's impossible. Even someone who moved out into the middle of the woods is still going to be exposed to toxins that are just pervasive in our air, in our soil, in our water these days. So, there's no way to completely remove yourself from this exposure, so it's just a matter of mitigation. And people with chronic illnesses do tend to be more sensitive to toxicity. They tend to have slower detoxification pathways. They tend to be a little more sensitive and reactive to toxins. So, someone who is not prone to chronic illness, they don't really have to worry about this much at all, right? Because their bodies are just like dealing with it, all day. Their exposure and their body just passes it through, right? People who develop chronic illness do tend to have a harder time managing toxic load, and so it is something to be mindful about. But again, it's not about like eliminating. It's impossible to do that, but it's about mitigating. Where can I draw a line where I say, okay, these are the possible exposure sources that I'm going to really try to reduce so I can get my body into a state where it can manage the toxic load that I can't really control, or I can't have control over. And having complete confidence and acceptance that, the best you can do is the best you can do, and your body will respond to any kind of reduction or mitigation in chronic load that you help it with, and then move on with your life, basically. Just do your best. So I hesitated making this video because I don't, there are so many potential sources of toxicity in our environment, and I really didn't want to, freak people out by being like, here's all the things to worry about, and then people are totally overwhelmed and feel hopeless and all this kind of stuff. So this video is not for that purpose, but I am going to go through common sources of toxic exposure that are more easily reduced by lifestyle practices. So it's going to be a little bit of a longer video. Already this is quite an introduction, but we're going to try to get through it just as fast as possible. I'm going to be having a lot more detailed information about this stuff and about how to DIY your own products and things like that in my book that's coming out in January. So I encourage you to get on my email mailing list on my website so you know when updates are coming for that. I'm going to have a really, really extensive chapter on this, but I just wanted to kind of put a brief tutorial out there for people. So honestly, the easiest way to start mitigating your toxic exposure is to manage your hygiene and beauty products. And what I tell people is basically like, you've got to start thinking like a hippie, basically. It is so normalized in our society to, especially as women. I mean, I think everyone, deals with this to an extent, but I think especially women have a lot of pressure to have a product for everything, right? And the advertising industry has really done a number on us in terms of making us think that we need like all these specialized products in order to be beautiful and look youthful and have good skin and have good hair. But the reality is actually, hang on, my focus is a little off. I don't know why it's doing that. There it goes. In reality, the fewer products we use, the better our skin and hair is going to be, because all of these products contain toxic synthetic compounds that have to be processed through the liver. And if we are constantly detoxing all these extra ingredients that we're putting on our body is not going to have as much time and energy to make our skin look awesome and make our hair look awesome and make our nails look thick and make our lashes look nice, right? So it's so opposite than what we've been taught and conditioned in our culture, but the fewer beauty products you use, the better you're going to look and the healthier and younger and more vibrant you're going to look. People tell me all the time like how vibrant my skin looks, how vibrant my eyes look and all this kind of stuff. And honestly, I use the absolute bare minimum of anything, that I can. And my skin has never looked better. So really start to question the products that you feel like you need. I mean, if you go on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, everyone has their like 30-minute skincare routine. It is completely unnecessary, right? Work on your diet, work on your stress levels, and throw out your skincare products. What you want, it doesn't mean you don't put things on your skin. Like, it's important to like self-care and moisturize and all that kind of stuff, but you need to be using completely natural ingredients that usually are coming in like the bulk section of the grocery store and not the beauty aisle of a department store. So, there are a lot of really common toxins, and you will sometimes see, like higher end, or like, beauty products you buy at like Whole Foods or something like that. You will see it'll say on the label things like paraben free, petroleum free, fragrance free, things like that. And that's good. That's an improvement, absolutely. But honestly, a lot of times those products are a little bit of a ripoff because they tend to be very expensive. If you actually read the labels, they're still full of all kinds of chemicals, just not like the top three that people know by name, right? So it's kind of a bit of a marketing gimmick. Again, it is an improvement, right? So anytime you can reduce your toxic load, it's better. So it's a great first step. But usually I have my clients just really start to DIY their own products or to buy from like smaller companies that really have like 3 to 4 ingredients in their beauty products, like super super simple, super crunchy, right? And that's what you really want to do. So if you can afford to support a small company that is making like really clean beauty products, that you look at the ingredients list and it has like, again, like 3 to 5 maybe ingredients, right? That's fine. You can definitely support smaller companies who are doing good work. That's great. It's also very inexpensive to DIY your own stuff. So I encourage you to really question like your shampoo, conditioner, soaps, face wash, body wash, shaving cream, perfumes, lotions, facial toner, nail polish, makeup. Like, really start to reassess this stuff and think about what you really need to use, like what really feels like an essential, and just simplify, simplify, simplify. And honestly, using natural oils, like, it depends on your skin type and your hair type, so you'll have to kind of experiment, because some people have naturally more oily or more dry skin or hair, and so you might need like a heavier oil, more a lighter oil depending on your constitution. But experimenting with natural oils, right? Like a lighter oil, like jojoba oil, right? Or a heavier oil, like shea butter, depending on your hair type, just a plain natural oil like that, just a tiny little bit of it is really going to be fine. That's going to be enough. And similarly, like, you can use basic soap, on your body. And really, you should not be covering your whole body with soap anyway, because you're going to be disrupting your microbiome, right? So, the few high oily areas, like maybe around your nose, maybe on your jawline or your forehead, underarms, things like that, like places that do tend to accumulate sweat and bacteria and stuff. Yes, you can use soap on those areas, but honestly, it can be a completely basic, simple soap, based on like coconut oil or beef tallow, or something like that, and then again, moisturize with a totally natural oil. I like to use a mixture of beef tallow and olive oil, and like that's it. That's what I'm moisturizing with. And again, I get compliments on my skin all the time, and I have never had a simpler hygiene routine. So yeah, that's just something to really consider in terms of like, how can you make things more natural? What kind of products do you really need to use? And just do your due diligence with the products you do buy. Read the ingredients list and be skeptical of anything you don't know what it is. All right, so moving on, then the next thing I would say would be cleaning products. So we often are just dousing our environment in a lot of really toxic chemicals without even thinking about it. And honestly, we live in such a germophobic era. We tend to think that if we're not bleaching everything all the time, then we're like at danger of getting sick, when it's actually the opposite. The more sterile an environment you have, the more likely you are to get sick. Now, of course, if you're in like a surgery room, right? That's going to be a little different. But in terms of like normal daily life, you do not need to use things like bleach or hand sanitizers or Clorox wipes or, antibacterial soaps or anything like that. Is completely unnecessary, and it's actually harming your immune system because you are killing off all the natural microbes in your environment that are helping you stay healthy. So, the other thing would be the fragrances that people use. We have such disrupted sensory organs at this point. We are so inundated with artificial scents and flavors, but that's another video, that we don't have a sense of what just like real life smells like anymore, right? And certainly it is okay, if you want to occasionally diffuse like a pure essential oil, or you want to simmer some fresh herbs, in some water on the stove. If you want to, do really natural things, like some people, I've seen some people do like these kind of holiday scented pots of water, where they put like cinnamon and oranges and things, and they simmer that on a stove. Makes a lovely smell in the house. So you can certainly do things like that, but I also encourage you to just really get used to what normal life smells like, right? And it's not scented, it's not fragranted. And once you really start taking away the air fresheners, and the laundry detergents, honestly, even the unscented conventional laundry detergents, I hate to tell you, but as someone who has been using totally DIY products for years now, those have a scent. They absolutely do. And once you really remove yourself from that whole world, suddenly you will realize how inundated with toxic scents that we all really are all the time. So, really start going through these kinds of products: dish soap, hand soap, laundry detergents, dryer sheets, cleaners, fragrances, air fresheners, all this kind of stuff. Again, most of it is completely unnecessary, and we've got to get used to more naturally scented life. Vinegar, salt, baking soda, plain liquid soap like Dr. Bronner's or another just like really basic soap that again has just like a handful of ingredients. This is really all you need to keep your house clean. Now, it's okay to have bleach on hand, for like major biohazard emergency situations, but it should be used very, very rarely. It should not be a part of your normal cleaning routine. Okay, I will also warn you that this is another area that is very greenwashed. I know that like Mrs. Meyer's and Seventh Generation are like very common products that people think are better. And yes, they have fewer toxic ingredients than like, the thing you're going to get in the Walmart cleaning aisle. But they are still full of a lot of unnecessary chemicals, and they are extremely inflated in price, and they are kind of a ripoff. So again, it can be a stepping stone for people, like if that, that might be a better, and it might be what you can do right now, but for very, very cheap, you can go buy some washing soda, and a big thing of salt, like coarse salt, and a big thing of white vinegar, and a big thing of just plain soap, and that'll last you for months, and you can clean anything with that. Okay, so the next thing I would say would be to look at your cookware. I know that non-stick pans say that like they don't leach toxins, but that is assuming that that layer, non-stick layer, never gets compromised. And have you ever actually looked at a non-stick pan? They get compromised, right? There's scratches all over them very quickly. So unless somehow you've managed to keep them perfectly pristine, they are leaching toxins. So you really want to work on getting all your nonstick pans out. You really want to work on not storing things in plastic as much as possible. You really want to work on not cooking things with aluminum foil. All these kind of things that tend to just be like normalized, in like standard American cooking, we really want to get away from. So ideally we want to be using stainless steel, ceramic, and cast iron for our cooking. If it feels like a lot in your budget to transition to those, go to your local Goodwill or stuff like that. A lot of the times you'll actually find really nice cooking supplies that are used for very cheap. So that's always an option. And then honestly, even if you have to get rid of a lot of your cooking stuff, even if you just invest in one nice pan, in one nice pot, that's great. You'll have to do the dishes a lot, but I think it's better than nothing. And then you do want to invest in glass storage containers. Now, here and there, especially if you're storing something that's cold, using a plastic bag is not the end of the world, but you definitely want to take it out of your daily habit, right? And so I always, you can either buy like a big thing of mason jars and then just reuse those forever. You can also just save jars from the food that you're already buying. A lot of times, like food that you're already buying is coming in big glass jars. So just like wash those, rinse those, reuse those. And that's your leftover storage, right? That's your dry goods storage. That's your I chopped up a bunch of vegetables but realized I didn't need them all storage, right? All of that kind of stuff. My husband always makes fun of me for my jar habit, but it comes in handy, I will tell you. Okay, so those are really the main areas, right? It's your hygiene and beauty, it's your cleaning products, and it's your cookware. And I would guess I would include like water bottles, like being mindful of not using plastic water bottles whenever possible. That is really going to be your main areas of toxic exposure in your day-to-day life. And so if you can take care of those, you have done a lot of mitigation already. So honestly, like give yourself a hand. If you are already working on that stuff, that is great. That is huge. That is so much better already than what the average American is exposed to. If you have done all that and you're looking for more, I would say the next thing you could do would be to get a good water purifier, certainly for your drinking water, but also maybe for your shower. I would be making sure that, if you buy a new mattress, that it's Green Guard certified, that it's not sprayed with flame retardants. Same thing with buying new furniture, new rugs, new clothing, stuff like that. A lot of this is just sprayed in these bromide compounds that are flame retardants that really affect our iodine uptake and just contribute overall to our toxic load. So trying to make sure that you are just buying new things very sparingly and kind of one by one, and if you can, letting it off gas outside for a couple weeks. But as much as you can, buy things used. Buy, antique furniture on Craigslist. You know what I mean? Like go to secondhand stores and try to buy things used as much as you can. And that way you won't be getting as much chemical exposure from it. Try to avoid synthetic fabrics as much as you can. Usually the ones that are sprayed in these flame retardants are going to be the synthetic materials, right? So trying to buy as many clothes as you can that are cotton, silk, wool, things like that, flannel, and they're more expensive, so you're going to be buying fewer clothes, but again, like quality over quantity. You actually don't need that many clothes if you have an amount of really high quality clothes. You can always get a air filter for your house. Get houseplants. Open your windows regularly. Make sure you're just kind of airing out your house regularly. You can turn your Wi-Fi off at night if you're worried about EMFs. You can ground, by kind of discharging any extra electrical activity that you've accumulated by, putting your bare feet on a natural surface like grass or soil or wood or even stone. That'll help ground you out, so try to get that in daily. And so those are just some kind of bonus practices to start looking at when you feel like you've gotten the basics down. And if you've done all of that, like, you are golden. Honestly, you are awesome. I mean, there is a certain amount, again, of toxic exposure that we just can't control. And so if you're doing that, buying organic. I didn't even talk about pesticides yet, but that would be another of those kind of bonus things to do, that if you are, like buying meat, buying produce, making sure you're looking for that organic label. Non-GMO honestly isn't as important because organic covers that already. So look more for organic than non-GMO. And if you are engaging in those practices as much as you can, you have majorly reduced your toxic load, and you have given your body a huge advantage on its healing opportunity. So I know this was a longer video, but like I said, this is a huge topic, so I hope that was a helpful rundown. And again, I really don't want to make this video to freak people out or make people go into panic mode and throw everything out that they own. Take it step by step, do one thing at a time. Recognize that every step you take is just going to be supportive to your body, and just keep doing your best. Okay, take care, everyone.